Don't you hate it when people talk about all kinds of useless information before they get to the point? I do too. Today we're going to talk about removing and replacing the clutch on a 2001 Yamaha TTR225. First thing you're going to want to do is drain the oil, which you do on this side. That broke loose. Go ahead and let that drain out. Come back to this side. Now's a good time if you're changing the oil to change the filter. Yamaha decided to use a combination of different things on these. Phillips and X. You can take that out. You should be able to reuse this O-ring. Set that aside. Next, I like to completely remove the brake lever. I've seen people just move it out of the way. It's kind of a pain, and when you're putting it back on, you can potentially mess up the gasket trying to maneuver it around. It's not very difficult to take off. You're going to want to loosen this, unscrew this bolt back here. Take that loose. Set that aside. And then if you look back in here, on the back of this, there is a split ring that is a retainer. If you don't take that off first, it is going to come off the hard way, and then you're going to need a new split ring. That comes off, and then there's a washer here. Take that off. This comes out. That makes the spring nice and loose, so that's easier to get off. And then this, make sure you don't lose your spring. This will come right through here. If you have the ability, I'd recommend washing the dirt off first. We're having a bit of a water shortage right now, so we weren't able to. Yamaha also decided to use Phillips on here, which is kind of a pain. There's a couple of ways to do this because the screws are different sizes. I've seen it done several ways, including drilling holes in a piece of cardboard, which I've done before. I'll show you how I do it. I start somewhere, remember where I started. So I'm gonna start here. And then I go clockwise and I put them in order on a magnetic strip. As you can see, they're different sizes. And as long as you put them back in the same order, you'll be good to go. And this should be ready to come off now. It's very likely not going to just want to come off by itself. Use a dead blow hammer or a rubber hammer, give it a few little taps here and there just to kind of knock things loose. Bear in mind that you have pins in there to line things up. So make sure those don't fall out and disappear. You will need those later. And you can see where that was hanging up is where the guide pins are at. So one of them stayed in, and there should be another one over here that's right there. I like to take both out. go ahead and set this aside. With it in gear to help hold it in place, go ahead and take these 4 screws off. Go ahead and leave the center. You don't need to mess with that typically for this job. I'll loosen them up in a crisscross pattern. Set those aside. Now, what I like to do is to keep track of everything in order. I take it all off at once and then set this aside. One thing you'll want to notice here is that these are not all the same. So you want to start with a friction plate when you put it back in, and then you're going to want to alternate. But when you get to the 5th position or the 6th position, you'll see that there's a little ring in here. This doesn't usually come with the new kit, so you're going to want to keep a hold of that. And you'll see that where that fits is there's one of these that are a little bit thinner that'll come with the new kit. So make sure you put everything back in the same position and same order. And the other thing that you'll notice is these rings, at least in mine that came off, don't have an offset. The new ones do have an offset, and I will show you how to put those in. I do believe these with the offset are the correct one for this bike, so this may have had either something incorrect or maybe they had changed it. I'm not 100% sure. The other thing is make sure that you soak the friction plates. I just soak it all, but definitely the friction plates in the motor oil you use. I use 1040, the T4. You can soak it for at least a couple hours or overnight or whatever. Don't put them in dry. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go, we're gonna do one of these, and then we're gonna put in one of these, and we're gonna kind of keep track of where this goes. So they're gonna be 90 degrees off. So if this one goes here, then we're gonna put in another friction plate. And the next one is gonna go facing down. So we're just gonna turn it. Go. Okay, and then that position is going to be this one that you can see is smaller. Just again, for comparison, it is smaller. You're gonna put that in, and then you're gonna put this ring in, and that fits in there, so that's how you know you got it in the right position. Then another one of these. The last one was pointing down, so we're gonna put this one pointing that direction. Now we're gonna be going in the up position. We're back to facing this direction. And finally, we end with a friction ring, and we're just gonna make sure that when we had this, that we started with a friction ring, and we did. So now we're back to where we started in the same order. Now you wanna put this back on. I will say that on other motorcycles, there's an arrow, and this is directional, and typically that arrow will line up to somewhere on here. I know like on a 125, it's like that. This one doesn't appear to have any of that, so I'm gonna assume that it doesn't matter because there's no way to know or line it up. So we're just gonna put it back on. We're gonna get these started. Just get them started for now. Once you get it started, you're going to want to get a torque wrench out, and you're going to want to torque them to about 5 foot-pounds. I think it's actually even a little bit less than that. Depending on the type of torque wrench you have, that'd be about 60 inch-pounds. You're going to want to do that in a crisscross pattern. So alternate from across. Check it. All right, and then we're gonna just give it a quick check it here. It's in gear, so it shouldn't move. Put the clutch in, and it does. So that's a pretty good indication that you got that right. All right, now we're gonna clean up the surface on here and make sure there's no debris. This would be a great time to use a new gasket if you had one and you wanted to do that, or if the gasket was damaged. I'm going to reuse mine because it is not damaged and it's glued on. I know a lot of people wouldn't recommend you do that. I actually probably wouldn't recommend you do that, but on this motorcycle, that is exactly what I'm going to do. And so I like to put the pins back into the engine side. So we take those off, get them started right there. Give them a little tap. The dead blow hammer. And then the other thing I like to do, I like to take a little bit of oil. You can use grease as well. Just put that around those, which will help it slide on. Make sure your gasket side is clean. If you do use a new gasket, make sure you clean it really well. And I like to use a little RTV to stick it on there. That makes it go on a little bit easier. And then we're ready to put this back on. Making sure to line up your pins. Those are there to help you. Once they're lined up, get it on there nice. Another couple little taps. That's good. Nice and tight. All right, so now we're going to put these back in the order. If you remember, we started with number 1, which was right over here. So I'm going to put them back in order. I am not going to tighten them up completely as I do that. I'm just going to get them started. I don't really care for the fact that Yamaha used Phillips on these, but one nice thing is it's very difficult to over tighten using Phillips. So that is one benefit. These do have a torque spec. Should be really hard to do with Phillips. It can be done. Here. You notice that I took this screw off even though it wasn't part of it, and the reason I did was to get this out of the way. And it was put in order as well. And so this one can be tightened up. All right, next. And when you're done with any luck, you do not have any extra holes or screws. And what I'm going to do in this case, because they are Phillips, it would be really hard to over torque them. So I'm going to go around in a crisscross pattern, tighten everything up. I'm going to call that good. Now, we're going to put the oil filter back in. It will only go back in one way. Make sure the surface here is clean. The surface here is clean. And put that back in. As a reminder, the hex one goes at the bottom. The long one goes over here. And the short one goes over here. Then you want to tighten these all up. Depending on the set of clutches you get, there might be some additional springs that you can replace. Depending on how long ago it was that your clutch was replaced would be the determining factor whether you decided to do that. Now, you're going to want to put 1,000 cc's, which is indicated there in a 225, of oil back in. Actually, first you're going to want to put the drain plug back in, or you will pour 1,000 cc's back into the pan. So we're going to come over here, clean off this surface. There's a spring down here, a little screen in there. Make sure that's clean. Clean off that surface. Get that started. Get it as hand tight as you can. Nice and tight. And come over here. I'm going to cut 1,000 cc's. You can hold your bike up straight and you should have oil appearing in your window there. Should start to come up. So we're good to go. Then we need to put the brake back on and to go. All right, put the brake back on. You want to start by feeding this back through here, getting it where it's supposed to be. Right about, get it on the other side of this clip here. There we go. That's where that's supposed to be. And before you put that on, let's reattach this. So first you want to put on the washer, and then this will go through another washer, and this goes in here like so. There we go. And when that goes through there and this nut goes on here, you're going to want to adjust this, but for now just get it started. And this goes back in, so you're going to want to line this up. Get it lined up. And Get it nice and tight. Then you're going to want to put your washer on here. And your clip back on. And go. Big screwdriver works pretty good. Watch out for your finger. Okay, that's on there. Make sure it's on. And then the last thing is, when you put your spring back on, it goes. Get your pliers. All right, to double check your work, you're going to want to see this won't work until you adjust this, so adjust it down to make sure you have some brakes. You're just going to have to mess with that and get it right. That feels pretty good. Go. But currently it's in gear. I put the clutch in, it'll move. That's a good sign. I'm going to put it in neutral here. That's how you replace the clutch on a Yamaha TTR225.